Planning to travel during the lunar holiday? You might be in for a chaotic journey as EVA pilots plan to strike. Alarm over light sentences for military personnel convicted of spying for China.
台湾却介于6个月到1年半不等，这对于嚇阻潜在的这个共谍其实是没有太多的效益的。
A rise in disinformation in the run-up to Taiwan's elections raises questions about the threat AI poses to democracies. Plus, we follow the story of Michael Boyden's fight for rights as a foreign national with disabilities. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. If you've got travel plans during the Lunar New Year holiday, better check your flight. Pilots from one of Taiwan's biggest airlines may be going on strike then. Tiffany Wong reports.
As Taiwan heads into its busiest holiday season, thousands of travelers may be left stranded as union pilots from EVA, the country's second-largest airline, prepare to strike. The union and the airline have been locked in a stalemate for months over pay raises and safety regulations. The pilots' strike is now planned for 2 major holiday periods, Lunar New Year in February and Qingming or Tomb Sweeping Festival at the end of March.
我们也持续的会发动2到3次的这个罢工演练，目的就是希望我的会员能够在非常短的时间能够配合工会的指令。
The strike will mostly affect the airline's long-haul international flights from Europe, the U.S., and Canada. Over 500 EVA pilots are in the union and voted for the action, but they're less than half of the airline's pilots, making the impact of a strike unclear. EVA Air said they're still hoping to reach a consensus with the union before the holidays and are facing pressure from the Transportation Ministry and the Tourism Bureau to protect customers from a potential strike.
要求这个长荣公司因为相关的一个罢工什么时候开始，罢工的时间多久或者是多少人参与等等的，这些都有很多不同的一个情境。
尤其是组团那么他要散置高资的时间，可能这种准备期确实是短了一点。一方面我尊重现行的法律规定，二方面我们也觉得这应该可以适度调整。
The union says they will give at least 24 hours notice before striking to allow passengers to change their travel plans. The airline said it will give refunds and adjust itineraries for all affected passengers. With less than 2 weeks before the Lunar New Year holidays, time is ticking for the union and airline to reach a consensus. Both say they're still hoping to avoid a strike and don't want to leave passengers scrambling at the last minute. Luffy Lee and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Some military officers have received lighter sentences after being convicted of spying for China. And that's raising questions over whether the justice system is up to the task of protecting national security. Harrell Hughes reports.
These 2 retired military officials have been convicted of spying for China, but neither is facing time in jail. The pair have been handed suspended sentences of 1 year, 4 months, and 2 years. And that's actually an increase on earlier sentences, after prosecutors appealed the previous rulings for being too lenient. The light punishment for espionage has alarmed some, who think it fails to deter would-be spies.
台湾却介于6个月到1年半不等，这对于嚇阻潜在的这个共谍其实是没有太多的效益的。可以嚇阻共谍，才可以确保我们的军事安全，可以确保军事安全，才可以确保国家安全。
Neighboring China sees Taiwan as part of its territory and has stepped up its efforts to influence the country through both military pressure and more covert operations. It's a threat that Taiwan's government is aware of.
这几年的的确确，中共对我们有很多动作拉拢我的人的确受到蛮大影响。
But it has to strike a balance between protecting the rights of Taiwanese and national security. Defense lawyers in this case were quick to accuse officials of pushing prosecutors for a tougher sentence.
第一审讲好了，检察官忽然之间违背他的承诺上诉了，然后呢，高院做出了这个决定。那很明显，我们认为他一定是受了这个压力。
This most recent case is just one of the many to come to light in recent years, involving both retired and serving military personnel. The government has worked to tighten rules governing state secrets, but until the risk outweighs the reward, it may struggle to put a stop to China's spying efforts. James Lin and Harrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
The first wave of one-year conscripts since Taiwan extended its military service period has now reported for duty. Our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to security analyst Eric Gomez to find out what the new program means for the country.
Can you talk about the significance of a country like Taiwan extending its mandatory military service from 4 months to 1 year, and what difference that extended duration is going to make?
So I think it's good to think about this through the lens of what conscription can do for militaries generally and what it can do for Taiwan specifically. So I think at the general level, conscription can be helpful for, creating a measure of societal buy-in for military action. It can also be really useful for having a sort of large pool of people in the population who have had some measure of military experience. So that way, if a war does happen, they can sort of relearn or come up to speed on certain skills quickly and be activated as, say, reservists. And so for a country like Taiwan that's facing, a potential invasion threat, the big value add for conscription is that potential for having that pool of people involved.
Looking at manpower, active forces, Taiwan has about 170,000 and China's got more than 2 million. If this is the case, should Taiwan maybe be investing more in unmanned systems instead of actual human beings?
I think that's a great idea, right? Anything you can do to sort of squeeze more efficiency and combat power out of small units of troops. The other thing I would say too is that, China's numbers look very impressive on paper in terms of its active duty military. But the big restraint for any sort of invasion situation is they have to get across the strait and onto the island, right? That creates a bottleneck. Not all of those, however many millions of troops, are going to be coming all at the same time. Also, the other theater commands that are involved in China's military probably going to be watching their own sectors in case there's anything coming in that might attack the Chinese mainland. So the numbers are, I don't know if I'd call them favorable for Taiwan, but they're not as bad as a sort of first glance would seem. But a lot of that depends on making the right choices about equipment and also training.
And what are you looking at specifically in this new one-year conscription period?
More money attracts better quality soldiers, right? But that also means for if you have amount of budget, right, and you're paying your troops a bigger section of that budget, and you want to keep acquiring new systems and capabilities, that means the budget's going to have to go up, right? And so keeping that political will, and I know the legislature is going to be divided coming into Lai's administration, that's going to be a trickier thing to pull off, but I think that's important for making sort of all this stuff work. The second thing is, I think once Taiwan receives, especially the Abrams tanks that the U.S. is going to be delivering, I think the deliveries start for that this year and go through 2026, and ditto with the F-16 Block 70. I think both of those get full delivery by 2026. Once Taiwan has that in hand, my advice would be you have enough sort of traditional military capabilities to handle the gray zone, to handle the coercion and the prodding.
That was Eric Gomez, a security analyst from the Cato Institute, speaking with Jaime Ocon. 2 people, a mother and her 3-year-old son, are dead after a house fire in the southern city of Tainan. Rescuers revived a 4-year-old girl, the only survivor. That building was home to 11 people, but the other family members were away at the time. Investigators are still searching for the cause of the fire. Police have taken down 2 fraud rings that each stole over $5 million. One group masqueraded as the investment firm BlackRock, using the messaging app Line to dupe over 100 people. Police have made 57 arrests across Taiwan after a 1.5-year investigation. They've also arrested 8 others for a cryptocurrency scam that stole victims' digital funds. Last July, TaiwanPlus reported on the case of Katie He and her British husband, Michael Boyden. He is severely disabled, but was denied help from authorities. Louise Watt reports on how there is now some good news for the couple.
After 4 years of fighting, a win. Taipei resident Katie Ho is picking up a certificate of disability for her British husband. He, Michael Boyden, is bedridden and needs constant care. But as a foreigner, he's been denied disability benefits here, until now.
I'm very happy for Michael because he really pioneered and opened up the path for the people to follow up. And I wish from the bottom of my heart, people don't need to use it, don't need to. But if they need, then there's a path is opening up.
Boyden has lived in Taiwan for more than 30 years and was diagnosed with atypical Parkinsonism 4 years ago. His case was one highlighted by campaigners pushing for disability rights for foreigners. They've won a change in the rules. British, Canadian and US citizens residing in Taiwan are now eligible to apply for a disability certificate, which opens the door to subsidized medical care and equipment and respite help for carers. Taiwan's Health and Welfare Ministry says disability benefits are being granted to these foreign nationals as their countries offer the same to Taiwanese living there. But this isn't the end of the issue. Campaigners here say they will keep fighting so all foreigners in Taiwan with disabilities can claim equal treatment. And not stopping there, they also want to find a way to make it easier to get Taiwanese citizenship. Taiwan recognizes dual nationality for its own people, but foreigners are required to renounce their original citizenship should they want to become Taiwanese. Campaigners say this is unfair and makes it harder for Taiwan to attract and retain the international talent it seeks.
The question is, why should people come to Taiwan, not as just tourists or just passerbyers, but why should they choose to invest in Taiwan for the long term? Without a citizenship pathway, you're always going to be treated as pretty much a second-class citizen. You're going to be a resident, you're a foreigner.
While citizenship is a longer-term goal, campaigners say there's a more urgent need for Taiwan to recognize all foreigners with disabilities. Sympathetic legislators plan to push this issue in the upcoming new session, giving hope to other foreign residents who have become part of Taiwanese society and yet are struggling to get the help they need. Klein Wong and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Education Ministry is encouraging universities to attract more international talent. At a meeting of university presidents, the ministry proposed setting up new programs that cooperate with local enterprises to supplement Taiwan's shrinking workforce. The program would offer free tuition and stipends to foreign students who opt to continue working in Taiwan after graduation. Taiwan's elections have wrapped up after months of political campaigns and after waves of online disinformation, mostly spread by bots. Artificial intelligence and its ability to interfere with elections is a growing global concern, given that this is just the start of a record year of votes around the world. Joyce Tseng reports.
2024 will be a historic year for elections worldwide, a major test for democracy amid a growing threat of disinformation driven by generative artificial intelligence. The dust is settling in Taiwan, one of the first of at least 40 countries and territories to elect new leaders this year. But researchers say in the lead up to the elections here, Taiwan saw more sophisticated and aggressive attempts by Beijing to undermine its democratic system, with more online bots parroting Chinese Communist Party narratives.
Taiwan is number one in terms of foreign government dissemination of false information. Number one, 11 years in a row.
Foreign interference in domestic elections is not new. One of the first examples was in World War II, when Britain used wiretaps and made up news stories to try and sway the U.S. presidential election in their favor. 76 years later, a more serious case. The 2016 White House race between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton saw a boom in automated bots, spreading fake information on social media like digital wildfire. Something that could get worse with increasingly savvy AI.
It has the potential to flood the zone with all kinds of crap. AI more generally can act as a way of dividing people so that they all believe what they want and they don't have any common ground on which to base a solution.
Trust in democracy has also taken hits, like baseless claims of election fraud, sometimes amplified by candidates themselves. Analysts are concerned that such divided societies make for a fertile breeding ground for AI to cause damage.
Worst case would be several disputed elections where it's very, very just unclear to anyone outside who won it, because there was some kind of last minute wave of misinformation or hacked and released data.
With the fate of major powers and global order on the line, some analysts say social media companies need to take responsibility for disinformation and weed out harmful bot activity. But such self-governance hasn't happened yet, leaving voters to their own devices to exercise their judgment in deciding what's real and what's not. Eason Chen and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break.
If you look at it, I mean, we both have a crazy neighbor.
We sit down with a Lithuanian lawmaker in Taipei. Stay tuned.
Is coming back.
Soaring into the year of the dragon. TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Thousands of people around Australia are protesting celebrations of the country's National Day. Instead, people are holding Invasion Day rallies in solidarity with Australia's Indigenous communities. Australia Day marks the day that Britain established the state of New South Wales as a penal colony. Many Indigenous Australians and their allies reject celebrating that day. They say it commemorates the beginning of injustices under European colonization.
We're the original people from here, and we're the world's best land managers. And so we're here to tell people that Australia Day doesn't mean anything to us. It's the day of Aboriginal sovereignty. That day when they came here, we have to keep telling people that we were operating under our law, and we still operate under our laws. And the law is in the land.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is calling for improved economic development in his country. Kim urged swift action to raise living standards and to narrow the urban-rural divide through regional development at a party meeting this week. He said that failing to provide food was a serious political issue. North Korea has a history of food shortages, including a famine in the 1990s that is thought to have killed up to 3 million people. India has honored the CEO of Taiwanese manufacturer Foxconn, and that decision was not politically motivated. That's according to an Indian Foreign Ministry source who told TaiwanPlus that the decision was based on Foxconn's economic contributions to the country and that it had nothing to do with any other nation. On Thursday, Young Liu was awarded the Padma Bhushan, India's third highest civilian honor. It's rare for a non-citizen to receive that award, and some saw it as a deliberate jab at China by the Indian government. Foxconn is set to invest some $1.6 billion in the country by 2025. A Lithuanian lawmaker says his country wants to expand military cooperation with Taiwan. Arūnas Valinskas is part of a delegation that's here for a 6-day visit. Our reporter Leslie Lau sat down with him in Taipei.
What's the purpose of the delegation's visit this time around?
The most direct purpose, shall we say, is to be the first European delegation to congratulate the newly elected president of Taiwan and to express and underline the importance of our bilateral relationship between Taiwan and Lithuania.
And you sit on the Taiwan Friendship Parliamentary Group in Lithuania, but you said you hadn't been here before last time we spoke. What compelled your decision to sit on the friendship group?
In Taiwan, in a way, I also see Lithuania, because there's so many similarities between our countries if you look at it. I mean, we both have a crazy neighbor, or shall we say, difficult to predict neighbor who has openly expressed rather negative remarks towards our respective countries and negative intentions, or intentions that raise eyebrows, you know. We also have, you know, similarities in our history, and we have similarities in the decisions that, you know, regarding our futures.
Now, has this trip given you any ideas about how Taiwan and Lithuania can work together further in the future?
One thing that our delegation has tried to focus on, obviously now that, you know, war is on the global agenda, and conflict in a broader sense. We can talk about, you know, war in Ukraine, we can talk about Middle East. One thing that has been of particular importance for us, for our delegation, is underlying the importance of cooperation between Taiwan and Lithuania when it comes to, you know, production of goods that will be of extreme importance if this conflict grows. Especially we're thinking about, you know, drone production. One of the things that we as Lithuanians are extremely interested in. We produce some stuff ourselves. For example, anti-drone weaponry and so on and so forth. One of these fields that, or one of these things that we can actually do about it as two countries is cooperate in the most advanced military fields and production of military equipment. That has been one of the most essential messages here.
Taiwan just held elections, and Lithuania is about to hold parliamentary and presidential elections. Now, depending on the outcome of that, could there be a reevaluation of Taipei-Vilnius relations?
That is possible. That is a possibility, a distinct one. But, I mean, one of the reasons for our visit here today as well is to, you know, make some facts unreversible. So I'm not saying that no changes are possible after our election. We still have less than a year left. We're already doing this, and I'm absolutely sure that we'll do even more once we go back home. And we'll do our utmost to make you know, our connection strong enough that any attempt to change it for the worse in Lithuania will incur such opportunity costs that any government will just not want to do anything about it. At least leave it as it is. If they are not prepared to make it better, then at least leave it as it is. I believe that's our minimum threshold of what we're aiming for.
That was Lithuanian lawmaker Arūnas Valinskas speaking to Leslie Liao. Now, Taiwan ranks in the top tier on the U.S. human trafficking report, and Taiwan's watchdog agency says the government here needs to work with neighboring countries to do more to fight the practice.
希望说将防治偷渡提升为跟越南劳政单位谈判的重要议题哦。
The agency's report comes after almost 24 bodies washed up on Taiwan's western coast last year. They were identified as people who had tried to enter the country illegally, with almost half of them coming from Vietnam. The report says human trafficking is getting more serious, with over 1,000 people smuggled into the country in the last 5 years. Taiwan is making a splash at the Oscars this year. 2 films produced by Taiwanese Americans have won nominations. Director Sean Wang's Nai Nai and Waipo documents the lively relationship between 2 elderly grandmothers, and S. Leo Chang's Island in Between explores the complexities of Taiwanese identity on the country's outlying islands of Jinmen. Our reporter Reese Ayers spoke to Chang about his nomination.
How does it feel to be nominated for an Oscar?
It just is kind of blowing my mind that we've been recognized, that we have, and that we've gotten this far with this very, you know, I mean, it's a very small film, a very simple story, and it's about Taiwan, which, you know, previously, I'm not sure that the Oscar voters, the Academy, would really even know that much about.
And what kind of feedback have you had about the film?
Most of the feedback has been about how resonant it is for them to, you know, either they're transnational themselves, you know, somebody who is belonging to 2 separate countries simultaneously, which is kind of how I am, or they had previously not known anything about Taiwan or Jinmen or the situation, and they thought it was really eye-opening, and they were moved. That word kept coming up.
Island in Between is one of 2 Taiwanese American produced films nominated in this category. What would a win for either of these pieces mean for you and for the Taiwanese American community at large?
I am super excited that there are 2 Taiwanese American films out of 5 shorts in this category. I know that, folks have this idea that perhaps there were previously no Taiwanese Americans or Taiwanese in diaspora in all sort of different fields, right? But in the last 10 years, because of the evolution, of this relationship between Taiwan and China has changed. And also the evolution of the Taiwanese identity, with the younger generation really embracing the term Taiwanese and the identity of being Taiwanese, that a lot of us are now really are much more like we're almost like coming out of closet as Taiwanese Americans, right? There's certainly people in my field, filmmakers who I had no idea they were even Taiwanese American. I mean, I think that having these 2 films being nominated is just an exciting reveal of potentially more and more Taiwanese American stories being told in all different medium.
That was Oscar nominee S. Leo Zhang talking to our reporter Reese Ayers. Thank you for joining us here for TaiwanPlus News this evening. Grab our app to get more of our stories on the go. Finally, check out this new exhibition called Unpacks What Cuteness Is at London's Somerset House. Simply adorable. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
For more news from Taiwan and around the world, go to TaiwanPlus.com and download the TaiwanPlus app.